You're listening to the Novice Experience, a podcast that explores the opportunities and challenges commonly encountered by students and young people. I'm Calvin Chan, and chatting with my guests, I'm going to take a deep dive into their meaningful stories, the lessons they've learned, and how they can inspire others. Let's get going. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Novice Experience. I'm your host, Calvin Chan. Today, I have Franco Ng joining the show. Franco is a youth mentor, community leader, and entrepreneur based in Vancouver. He founded the World Youth Leadership Foundation in 2016, which is an international youth entrepreneurship program that facilitates youth business development in cross-border relations in China. In 2019, he founded YouthTalkNation, a YouthThink organization that empowers young leaders to create real change by connecting their solutions with government and businesses. And Franco's newest endeavor is founding Live Unlimited Technologies, a startup launching early 2021 in partnership with Charitable Impact, looking to redefine local networking and charity for students and young professionals in Vancouver. Wow, that's a long resume, Franco. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kelvin. Happy to be here. I mean, if you're going to go through my LinkedIn, then there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well, I mean, these are all important milestones for both you and the youth in our community. Obviously, you're a youth mentor. You're so passionate about working with young people in our society. Why don't you start with giving us your origin story? So where you're from, your background, and sort of the defining moments that make up who you are today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as we get older, we always look back and we start reflecting. You're like, oh, it's because of this, therefore I am this today.
Yeah.
So I think that now that I'm turning 26 coming April. So there's a lot to reflect back on, and there's a lot to look forward to. But the origin story is that I was born in Hong Kong, but I came when I was, as a baby, 1.5. Grew up starting East Van, then moving to Richmond.
Yeah.
I would say that the first defining experience that I've had was, as cadets. I think cadets at the age of 12, a youth military program here in Canada really kind of set the foundation of who I was as a person, as an individual, taught us team management, leadership, discipline, most importantly, office politics and how to deal with different people at a very, very young age. So I did that for 7 years. Then, going to university, I went to UBC, Sauder School of Business. The story there was that my grades weren't high enough to get in my first year. So I had to work very, very hard my first year to transfer from UBC Arts to UBC Sauder, which, curiously, when you're in the arts program at UBC in your first year, 9 out of 10 people that you speak with, you're like, oh, what do you want to do? Like, what's your major? Like, oh, I'm going to transfer, into Sauder. Like, everyone just has that kind of plan, when they don't get in their first year. And that's same with myself. And I worked really hard towards that. I spent my first year in the basement of, Irving, studying every single day, didn't do anything else. I got my grades up, transferred in, was super excited. And then maybe 2 or 3 months into it, I was like, oh shit, like this is it. Like after all that hard work and thinking that, this is what I want to attain, it ended up not being what I wanted to do. And I struggled a lot with that during that year. And I kind of, made that decision, being stagnant and talking to myself and saying, hey, if I wasn't going to find what I want in school, I had to go find it elsewhere, which is when I started diving into community work and politics and charity. So I started doing a lot of work, especially within the political arena, just because of language capabilities and cultural background, doing ethnic outreach for different ministers and different parties, which is another defining moment, I think, in my life, and just seeing that the world is a lot bigger than school. And the makers that school leads you to believe that these are the 5 career paths that are available out there. There's a lot of intersections and a lot of areas that I became passionate about that I never knew existed, which is why I really enjoy community work and grassroots organization. And then, almost in my 3rd, 4th year prior to graduating, I knew I had a passion for youth development stemming from cadets. I knew I wanted to make a difference for students who are struggling to also find their careers and their passions. And I wanted to start a business around that. I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, which is when I founded, World Youth Leadership Foundation, starting in Vancouver, and I was beginning the process of almost creating, your own course and your own mentorship program,
Right.
sort of thing. But then, my dad has a bit of business in China. So he does a bit of like cross-border kind of financial services to kind of keep it short. And he said, hey, man, if you're going to do something like this, I think it's a lot better if you went back to China and did it. Right?
Yeah.
The market's so much bigger. You can speak Mandarin and Cantonese. You bring a different side of leadership and mentorship to the culture in Asia. So he thinks that there's something there that you can work with. And that's what I started doing for about 4 years, just flying back and forth between here and China, doing youth mentorship and entrepreneurship development. Eventually, whenever I'm back here, I get bored and I started YouthTalkNation, merging government relations with high school kids and getting their voices heard. And now with Live Unlimited and starting a new young professionals network. And what we're trying to do is gamify networking and charity, and
Cool.
essentially giving points for those who are engaged within our community. And those points are able to be redeemable for charitable donations. Sorry, that was kind of a long.
No worries. Yeah. And we'll get into more of that later in the episode, sort of your new projects and your background and how it led you to your projects today. But, I like to do a segment called Give Me Five. It's sort of a lightning round of questions so our listeners get to know you better. We have 5 questions. So number 1, what's your favorite board game?
Ooh, honestly, Matt, I don't play a lot.
Yeah.
The one that I've played kind of recently is just Catan. I think Catan's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's over COVID, we're at home so much, so there's a lot of games going on with like family and people in your core bubble. So I always like the traditional Monopoly, right? You're dealing and you're negotiating with people, so that's always fun. Number 2, what's something you could eat for a week straight?
Ice cream. Big fan of ice cream.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that your like go-to comfort food?
I would say so. I mean, just from even just McDonald's drive-through, get a cone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Who inspires you, Franco?
Ooh, honestly, it's not one single person, but
Okay.
all the kids that I work with, honestly, through YouthTalkNation, through my other organizations that I'm involved in, they're just so smart. Just talking to them, there's not that big of an age gap. They're like sometimes 18, 17, maybe 5-6 years of difference. But I'm like, man, these guys are gonna kick my ass in a few years. Like they're so smart. So
yeah. I mean, they're sort of, sort of like the customer and the product of what you're doing, right? So it's sort of the thing that keeps you motivated and keeps you going. So the fact that they're the ones who inspire you is just a testament to how strong your passion is for your projects. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Ooh, I would say probably ambitious, giving, and I would say charitable. Giving, charitable, kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But maybe or hopefully I would think somewhat inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that, like, you really defined yourself that way, again, through your project. So that's really good. You're doing a lot of things, sometimes at once. So when are you the most productive?
Oh, I'm a morning person.
Okay.
I would say I get up pretty early. I like to just get everything done sort of in the morning. And then after lunch, I kind of crash a little bit. And then at night, you get a little bit burnt out. So you kind of want to just relax for a little bit. So I'm definitely a morning kind of guy.
Yeah, it's I mean, you're grinding all day. So that's awesome. So Franco, why are you so passionate about helping youth? I know you mentioned, your background with cadets. You were in the Army cadets. I was in the Air Cadets. We're very youth facing. We learn a lot of like leadership and mentorship skills. But obviously that has really stuck with you throughout the years. Why so passionate about mentoring youth? Why are you so inspired?
I think just growing up, having both good and bad role models, within cadets
Mm-hmm.
or high school teachers, or some teachers that really like you and some teachers that are iffy about you. And you can learn from both, good and bad leadership. But I think when you meet that one great mentor who plants a seed within you and believes in you and tells you can be more than what you think, or if you have a goal and they push you very hard and they support you in achieving that goal, and when you do, you just kind of want to give back, and you sort of see that potential within young people that are lost, that don't know really honestly where they want to go, but just have a dream and have a passion. And
Yeah.
you kind of see a little bit of yourself in that, and you kind of think back to all the times that you received that guidance, that mentorship. And I just feel that passion to give back,
Yeah.
and to kind of nourish that potential, and have it grow into something. And I think that the more successful someone that you've been able to touch and nurture, they've become, the more successful that I personally become. And
Mm-hmm.
I always say, when you give without expectations, you receive more than you can ever expect.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it really is just from that. And I think now also kind of taking a dark turn, but also like recognizing your own mortality, that you're like, okay, like I'm a quarter, maybe a third, but like a quarter through my life,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, life is short. You don't realize that as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
but life is short. And when you see a kid that's in his teens and you're like, oh, he has the next 50 years, 20 years to decide where he wants to go. And you just want to help that out, and help him achieve the most out of his or her life,
Yeah.
as much as someone helped you.
So what's the dream then? Because when you say words like giving or charitable and giving back, right? And trying to inspire the next generation, I guess there's no really a point where you say like I've done my job, right? Like this is everlasting. It's ongoing. There's more youth every year, right? So what's the dream? What's the end goal for you? Maybe when you retire, when you finally say I'm stepping away from this, what would you hope to have accomplished?
For me, I don't think necessarily there is a end goal,
Yeah.
just because I love the process so much,
Hmm.
that the process for me is the goal, right? And I get my reward center in my brain is just the grind, right? Like inspiring others, helping others through
Hmm.
the tough times, or whatever they're going through. And when I reach a goal, or if I help someone reach a goal, yes, there is a sense of satisfaction there. Yes, there is a sense of like, oh, we did it, or I did it. But that goes away really quickly. And my
Yeah.
brain kind of just searches for that next thing. And I get more of the high figuring something else in the process, rather than really necessarily achieving it. So I think for me, the end goal is just to just do this as long as I can. Like as long as I'm still passionate about it, as long as I'm still feeling like I'm able to help people, and people are taking some of my advice or some of my guidance, as long as that's still, that's still the case, I think I'm already winning. And everything
Yeah.
else that comes kind of from that, I
Hmm.
think it's just a bonus.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear that all of this motivation is internal, right? Like you're hungry for the process, and you're hungry to hustle, and also part of your process is to help others as well. So it's really inspiring to hear that you're so motivated. And you talked about how you were studying the Bachelor of Commerce. You majored in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial studies at University of British Columbia. um, when was the moment where you realized your academics and what you studied had synergy to what you're passionate about, in helping people, and now you're combining it to create Live Unlimited? When did you realize that?
Oh, that's a tough question, because friends that know me, I'm not a big fan of the education system.
Yeah.
Uh, my first nonprofit that I was trying to start to address it was my first year, uh, just graduating from high school, looking back and realizing that, school or university wasn't what I thought it was. And I started my own nonprofit. I went to the school board and I was like, you guys need to change this. Like career 10 is bullshit. And they completely shot me down. They're like, okay,
Yeah.
you're a load of crap. Literally, they're like, what experience do you have? Who are you?
Yeah.
And then they even whipped out the career 10 curriculum and pointed out to like all the things, like everything that you talked about, we're already teaching. Because like
Yeah.
on paper, they're like, oh, we help you prep for your careers and you do this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just graduated from this. And I was like, it didn't teach me anything. But that's another story.
Yeah.
I think school really just taught me or pushed me to explore. I think it's less so because I did take entrepreneurship in school. I did take a course. It's called NVD. It's called New Venture Design,
Yeah.
where you actually have to prototype a project. It's a commerce plus engineering kind of cohort. You
Yeah.
prototype something, you try to take it to market, do the market research, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a very small subset of business. That's a very startup oriented sort of model where it's like, hey, how do you do your prototype, raise your seed round, do your series ABC? And although that is part of the Live Unlimited plan, and we do have a route where we're trying to go the full startup mode, 99% of businesses doesn't go that route. 99% of business probably doesn't raise money in the same way a normal venture or startup venture does. So for the most part, for myself, although that there are teachings within entrepreneurship program that I'm implementing in how I'm planning stuff and how I'm approaching things, I wouldn't say it played a big role in anything that I have done. Rather, the things I've done outside of school has really dictated my direction.
Right. But when you talk business, right, and you're doing a startup, there's got to be some metrics along the way, right? Or even, again, an end goal. So when you combine your internal passion, for inspiring youth, which you say may not have an end goal, to, a business, how do you measure your success? How do you measure your progress in terms of running that business or a startup, and measuring growth too?
Well, I think passion needs to meet profit. I think it's just as simple as that, right? Like, as much as I want to, I start to realize that now that I'm getting a bit older, I was in a giving mode, for the past 4 or 5 years, which allowed me to really build my networks and really allowed me to really amass sort of the resources that I have now to really make my life easier. But at the same time, not everything converts. Right. And if your business is all about just giving, just mentoring, just helping others without really caring about really the bottom line, which is what helps you survive, then you're not going to have a business at all. You have a charity. Right?
Yeah.
And that's not self-running. So I think for myself, it's really an internal measure, right? I have to look at the bottom line. I have to look at the profits, seeing if it's sustainable. And I think if it is sustainable and growing to the point that I don't have to sacrifice the giving end or the balance I feel like internally is there, I'm okay with that. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of speaking of a business, there's no, it's not wrong to think about profits or, how well the business side of things is doing just because you're running, sort of a charity and giving mode, right? Because the more money that you bring in and the more resources that you bring in, it means, a better environment for the people that you're serving. So, it's sort of like a balance between the business and your passion. And that's what's beautiful about startups and entrepreneurship, right? You're really, really exploring sort of your own interests and trying to make it in a way where you're making money and using that money to fuel your operations and going back to your own passion. So that's really amazing what you're doing. Speaking of the business itself, can you tell us more how Live Unlimited works? What can we expect from the platform that's launching, early 2021, and how do young people participate?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the best way I can describe Live Unlimited is at the simplest form of it is imagine if LinkedIn also had a offline community.
Okay.
So one thing that I'm really passionate about, I really look at is that the world is so addicted to social media these days. We're so addicted to ramping up our numbers, getting our followers, getting our connections, like LinkedIn, like 500 plus, like that was a big thing, like getting 500 plus connections.
Yeah.
But I always ask people who have that, it's like, of that 500 connections, how many of those are convertible? How many of those are meaningful?
Yeah.
Right. So unless you're targeting to be an influencer, unless you're trying to make money trying to be an influencer, and you're full-time trying to do that, you don't need 5,000, 10,000 followers. And frankly, it takes a lot of time to build that up. But what you do need are 10 really great people, 5 really great people who actually can give towards what you're doing or can help you along your career path or your passion. But for us, it's like looking at LinkedIn, it's very tough to find that 5 or 10 just online purely. So what we're trying to create is a young professionals network that has a lot of online networking, volunteering, charitable events that allows you to build relationships outside of the workplace, figure it out who the professional are as an individual, as a human being, build that relationship first, but also we also have a mobile app that we're developing that allows you to more easily connect with each other.
Interesting.
And that mobile app, instead of what we're focused on, instead of asking like, oh, LinkedIn, which is purely your resume, really what it is, we ask questions like, what's your mission? What's your goals? What's your next, 5-year goal, 1-year goal? What's your legacy? How do you want to be remembered? We ask that question during the onboarding process. And it's not something that you would normally get asked. Like no one's going to ask you on the street, like in the interview, it's like, how do you want to be remembered? Right. Yeah. Like, and we ask those kind of questions. So when you connect with someone, we feel like you're able to connect on a more human level rather than a very surface level. And to kind of tie all of that together, we also have sponsorship companies. We take a portion of our membership fees in which we give points away for contribution. So if you're volunteering, if you're coming out to our events, we're encouraging you to come out by giving you these points.
Yeah.
And these points are then redeemable for charitable donations.
Oh, cool.
Through Charitable Impact. So, yeah.
So you're not only, giving and you're contributing to youth, but you're inspiring them to participate in the community, and they get, their points and redeemable points to give away and do charitable work on themselves. So it's a full circle. That's really interesting. And I guess like part of Live Unlimited is the technology side, right? There's an app, there's a platform. How have you tackled this? Like, are you a tech person? What have you noticed about the space? And it's so interesting because we don't see a lot of charitable work and youth mentorship platforms branded as a technology and as an app. So what has the new frontier been like for you?
It was tough, man. I'm not a tech person. I'm very much not a tech person. I never even thought about building some sort of technological company or a tech-related business.
Yeah.
But my co-founder has UI UX experience, and he worked on a startup.
His name is
Harry. Harry. Yeah. So okay. my good friend Harry, we went to high school together, met each other during elementary, so we know each other for a long time, and he has a lot of UI UX experience, which aid us in starting it. But when we came to actual development of the app, it was very tough for us to find anyone. It really because with this application, this business model, it's very integral to my experiences and everything that I've done. It really speaks towards it. And a lot of times when you're trying to explain to someone, especially someone who is a software engineer that maybe unfortunately spends a lot of time facing the computer rather than the community, they don't see it. They don't understand, like, well, it's not hard to build, but like, how are you going to get people to use it? And I'm like, it's fine. I got this. Like, I've done this before, but they don't see that, and they don't see the business model. So for them, it's very difficult to get like a co-founder on board or someone that was willing to really hop on the project and be really passionate about it. So we ended up spending almost 2 to 3 months trying to find the right people, looking at outsourcing, looking here locally, hiring junior devs, senior devs, whatnot. And eventually we went with the outsourcing route. So we have a team down in the States right now that's actually building the app for us. And hopefully the betas will come out around late January, the full version around March. So that's what we're looking at in our timeline right now.
And our listeners can find that anywhere in their app stores?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So both Android and iPhone.
Perfect. It's really cool to hear how this is all still a learning process for you. And that's the beauty of like running a business or, exploring entrepreneurship is that, you're so passionate about one dimension and that's youth mentorship. And, you're really good at it too. Um, but, for you to build a useful platform and I dare I say revolutionary in terms of like how this business is run, you had to learn a new skill and you had to explore that new facet. And I find that so amazing. And it's I'm guessing that it's something that you teach our youth as well, is that you always got to be a learner, right? You always going to be figuring stuff out every day on your own. And sometimes people aren't there to help you and guide you, but you have to go find the answers. So what can you say to that, like for the youth of today who might be interested in starting their own thing, right? Like their own business or their own projects, like what advice would you give to them so that, they're motivated, they stay inspired and they get over that fear and self-doubt?
Yeah, I gotta give props to a lot of youth these days, and I wish, I try to blame it on technology, but I wish I kind of had the technology back then.
Yeah.
Because I noticed a lot of high school kids, whether it's a nonprofit or a business, all it takes now, it's like just go on Instagram, start an Instagram account, name it whatever organization you want, and there you go, and they're starting, and they're building a brand around that, and they're building a team around that, right? And I found that super super inspiring, right? For them to be able to have that idea, take that step, and I think the barriers are so low for them to do that now that they're just gunning for it, and I think that's really really awesome.
Yeah.
But I think what they're going to start to realize, because your grade 12 high school project, starting an Instagram account, is much different once you get into university and thereafter in the real world, is you got to be patient and you got to do a lot more than you think. So a lot of times we're very narrow-minded in what we're doing, which although focus is great, and I think doubling down on something is great, at the same time, you're still young, right? You actually don't really know what's suitable for you out there. It's very rare to find your passion at a very young age.
And I guess it changes too as you age, right? Like their circumstances change, new experiences come along, you meet new people, passions and interests change. And I feel like school does this thing where they make you think that you have to fit in a box, right? Like you graduate high school and then you go into university and college and you have to pick, 4 years of schooling that directly launches you into your career that you might not even be truly passionate about by the end of it. So I feel like, yeah, I agree with you. Being open-minded is important.
That's so awesome, because that's the origin story of our name for Live Unlimited. Right? Is this idea that life should be filled with unlimited possibilities, as long as you have the right connections, the right resources to make that happen. So I always tell students as well, is like your passions are going to change, your interests are going to change. And when it does, who's there to help you make that transition into your new direction? And if you're just having that same friend group, or stuck within that same network or that same industry, and you want to leap outside of that, it's going to get so much harder if you don't have anyone to point you in the right direction. Yeah. And for myself is that I've built such a diverse network of people and friends and industry professionals around me that I have people reaching out to me for opportunities where I don't want them, or sometimes when I need something, I am able to reach out in a variety of industries and have that and a referral that will make it so much easier if I do want to suddenly make a change in my career and dive into something else.
Yeah. So I guess like just keeping an open mind and also, a diversity of network and, friends and connections. That's always really important. Don't stay one dimensional, because that's not what life is about.
No. And you got to take action and do it.
No, for sure. Yeah. Stay proactive.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is that a lot of times it's great. You think about it. You're like, I need to diverse, or I need to like network, but you don't actually know what that means. You don't have a support network to push you to do that. And you end up just doing the same thing. Yeah. So really, taking action and surrounding yourself with the right people in order for you to do that, I think is very important.
Franco, we're nearing the tail end of this episode. I wanted to ask one last question. Young people and students often think they're powerless or incapable of making change in society. I guess we see a lot of that in our political system in terms of like voting and actually influencing policy. What do you say to that? Like, what advice can you give to our youth so that they're inspired to, actively participate in society and actually voice their opinion?
That's oh my god, we can do another episode on this, but the biggest misconception with young people, exactly what you said, is the fact that you're powerless. And I think, just speaking from personal experience, every organization that I've been a part of, every minister that I've spoken with, right, they always ask for a youth thought, opinion, idea on a certain issue. They always want me to build a youth team around them. They always want to do outreach in that area because they care about what the next generation believes and what they think. And in a democratic society, your vote matters. And if they're not catering to what you believe in and how you want to envision your future, they're going to lose your vote. Right. And obviously, in order for them to maintain their position in office, and in order for them to continue to build a country that the majority of us want to see, they need to be able to shape policy to suit the views and the needs of our next generation. And I think when I tell youth that feel powerless and they're like, I don't know what to do, or like, I want to make a difference, but I feel like my voice isn't being heard, is because you're selling yourself short. And I think the biggest thing is never treat anyone as they're better than you. I don't care how old they are, how successful they believe they are financially or otherwise. We're just human beings.
Right.
And although they may have more experience in a certain area, it's really a different experience, right? We all have a unique background, and your experience, Calvin, is no better than mine, and vice versa, which is why I learn from kids, people 10 years younger, 5 years younger, whatever it is. I learn from people 20, 30 years older, right? But I never sell myself short. And whenever I go into a meeting and I have an opinion and I want to voice it out, I say it with confidence. I say that because of what I've uniquely experienced, this is how I see things. And we can have a really great discussion about that, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's suitable or practical. But at the very least, I've put it on the table.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is just treat everyone as a human being. Be confident in who you are and understand that your experience is just as valuable as the ministers who's dealing with the $1 billion policies or whatever they are doing.
Right. Yeah. And part of that I see in you is that, you carry a sense of humility, right? And just being humble and the mindset of a learner. And that makes you, so inspiring, because you're always learning from the people around you, no matter their age or their experience. And that's it's all about, right? In life and in business and whatever you try to pursue, it's always, getting to meet new people and new experiences. One day we're going to be older than the majority of society, right? It's not like we're going to stop learning then. So yeah. Cool. So we're at the end of the episode, but Franco, can you tell our listeners how to find you and Live Unlimited on social media, and how can they reach out?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you can probably find us on all social media platforms, Live Unlimited official. You can find me personally on Instagram and on LinkedIn at Franco Ng or Franco Ng. You should be able to find me. I'm more focused on LinkedIn these days. So if you're on LinkedIn, and I know a lot of students are starting to build that profile.
Yeah.
So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm always open to chatting with anyone, really. If you're gonna hit me up and you're just be like, hey, let's just chat. I don't even care what you want to chat about. I'll throw aside 30 minutes and we'll have a great chat, because you never know what can come out of that. Yeah. So I'm always open to having that conversation. Yeah. That's
awesome. And I know you're doing you're recording the chats with younger students as well, and you posted them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And you can, if you're interested in what Franco's talking about with other youth in your community, go check out his LinkedIn profile. And thanks so much, Franco, for joining us in this episode. We look forward to seeing what Live Unlimited is like, the app and the platform, and hope you, the listener, can go check it out and also participate in the community and the networking process. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Novice Experience, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Novice Experience. Our theme song is Concrete Jungle by Audio Binger.
You can find us or reach out on social media at The Novice Exp. That's The Novice EXP. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on all your podcast listening platforms. Talk to you next time.